Welcome to Highly Affected by Her Surroundings, the podcast where we reveal how your environment can make or break your day. Hosted by me, Nicole Rowe, owner and lead designer at Our Nixon Interiors. Today, we are with Brad Leavitt of AFT Construction, which is a finer touch construction out of Arizona. Brad builds compounds, might not be the right word, but just these luxury, awesome, amazing homes. He has built a killer team and has really starting to be the guiding light for a lot of contractors across the country. So I'm going to let Brad take over, introduce himself, and kind of tell everyone a little bit about him.
Well, I appreciate the kind words there. It's great to be on, Nicole. So we're a luxury builder based in Phoenix, Metro Phoenix. My office, I'm here, our Scottsdale office. So home base is in Scottsdale. Anyone that knows the Phoenix area, but we're coming up, let me think, March of next year will be our 12th anniversary. So about 11 and a half years in business. And we're a team of roughly 30 people, and we're a true general contractor. Like, we don't self-perform. And what that means is, we don't do our own framing, our own carpentry, our own cabinetry. We subcontract with our trade partners on every project. And that allows us a lot of versatility. Really what it comes down to for us is probably similar to like a big commercial firm, is systems, right? Systems, protocol, organization that allows us to work with a wide variety of designers, such as yourself, Nicole, all throughout either local or throughout the country, architects, and most importantly, work on these unique designs, because every home we do is so much different.
And one thing I'd like to say is Brad is a huge fan of interior designers, and that support you give us. And also you say it on a lot of podcasts of your own podcast.
Yeah.
Brad has the Brad Leavitt podcast. You won't take on a project without an interior designer. And I think that's an interesting little thing to add. And I'd like you to talk about that for a quick second.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. And I will say, because, Nicole, you and I have had conversations, other designers are like, Brad, but in my market, but we're seeing that change. And just as I sidetrack this a second, it's funny. There's some builders I know that I've mentored and spoken with, and now they kind of use it as like the Miranda rights. We're like, okay, if you don't select a designer, one will be appointed to you. Kind of like, if you're arrested, you need a lawyer, attorney or something. But the point being is that, I've had this stance for a very long time. I went through the pitfalls and pain of trying to operate as designer, or trying to operate as kind of that navigation for the client. And it just doesn't work. The fact of the matter is, if you want to have a successful project, if you want a project to finish reasonably within time and on budget, you have to have the design team, because that's, the third piece of the puzzle. There's three legs to that. And sometimes you may have a landscape architect and line designer, but at the core, you have the architect, the designer, and the builder. And if you have those three cornerstones, like, projects will be successful. And so, it's probably been about 6-7 years now that I took the stance that if you don't plan on hiring a designer, you're not working with AFT Construction. So it's pretty cut and dry with our clients.
I would love for you just to kind of ballpark, how much longer do you think a project, and how many, just like change orders and dollar amount, if a client was like, oh, I'm super into this, I know you won't take them on now, but like, if you did take on, like, what would that do to a project?
Oh, it's catastrophic. And I don't say that lightly. I'm telling you, and there may be some builders, and it depends on the scale. If they're doing a small kitchen or small bathroom, that's one thing. But if you're building a custom home ground up, or you're doing a major renovation where you're essentially gutting the entire home, maybe doing a big addition, it at minimum, 30% more in build time. And that's equivalent to cost, right? As the project gets to be longer under construction, that means as builders, we make less money. So not only the change orders and unforeseen, and I would say even worse than all of that, not just the bottom line and general admin and everything goes into general conditions, but just the simplicity of you as the builder installing a countertop, and the client saying, well, I didn't know it looked like that. I didn't want that. I don't like that overhang. I don't like that edge detail. And you multiply that through every finish of the home, that some clients may be okay with some and not okay with others. Well, you circumvent all of that by having a design book to say, no, this is on paper. We've decided this. We've actually thought through where the seams are going to be in the countertop. We know what the overhang is going to be. We know what the edge detail is going to be. the slabs have been selected by the designer and most often the client. So you're working. There's no finger pointing. There's no confusion. I can bid a project properly. I can get correct bids. I can actually get my trades engaged. My team can support it. So it's just like outside of the marketing, outside the business development, outside the national awards, like at the core, it just saves so much time and money for schedule and conflict by having an amazing designer. And even if they're not amazing, just the fact of having a designer with information that we can bill from. So
You hear that? Any designer is better than no designer.
exactly.
Okay,
I
I'm
mean, and I'll live by that
totally
all day. And
joking.
I've worked with a wide variety of skill set. I mean, I've worked with some up and comers that are learning their craft just like I did as a builder. And it's totally fair that there may be some things that they just don't know what they don't know, like maybe a fireplace detail or a cabinetry detail. And that's fine. Like we can work through that. And I've worked with some that are extremely knowledgeable, that have incredible design books. But at the core, having a liaison and a third party to kind of work through these details and adjustments and help our subs to make sure we're building what's properly. And just at the, sorry, I'm long winded on this, Nicole, but we have QR codes on all of our builds. There's not a lot of builders doing that, but the benefit is now we have the latest and greatest and updates, and we're building real time on the most up to date specs. And it's valuable for our team to run a clean operation.
And I would tell you to yell that from rooftops, but you really do. I think you do.
I
I think
try. Yeah.
between all of the panels you talk on, your podcasts, but also like all of the organizations you're part of, you are kind of training this new generation of general contractors that, being a designer, like being partnered with a designer, that the client brings on is huge.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's funny, Nicole, that here's one secret, and maybe this is how you could pitch to builders too. I, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but a lot of people are like, Brad, how did you accelerate? How did you get growth to, how did you get the builds you're doing? How do you get into this luxury building? Look, let's be honest. Like this goes back 6, 7, 8 years that I was posting content amazingly designed by my designers. Of course, I tag them and give them credit. I'm not designing it, but people are like, Brad, you build the most amazing homes. We love your product. We love your work. Well, that's because we partner with designers. And so it's allowed us that growth and to open up different doors and relationships with vendors. And to your point, like I have an educational coalition summit. I teach all contractors. And in there, I'm teaching about how to partner with designers. And that's, if you want to take your business to the next level as a contractor, you need to start partnering with interior designers.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm clapping for you behind the screen. But I think it's true. And I think my background. We have building construction degrees. You went to BYU for it. I went to Georgia Tech for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was a single class or field trip or anything that interior design as a profession was discussed. And looking back at it now, I think that's where a lot of this lag is, because architects were discussed and, your trades and all of that. But I think in the education side of it, if even just, hey, interior design's an actual thing. It's a degree. It's complicated. Like it's not just picking paint and pillows.
No, yeah.
I think that would have gone a long way. And I've never really thought about it because, I did the schooling and now I've pivoted, but it would be a neat value add. I think I'll have to reach out to some of these colleges and, get it going. But we have this conversation on a regular basis of me and my small town trying to get these builders to be on board with an actual interior design firm and not just someone that's helping them pick finishes on the side. So thank you for all you do. And I've sent so many contractors your podcast in your direction because they need to hear this knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. It's funny. I mean, the educational conversation is a whole different sidetrack, right? Because I mean, like you and I, we don't learn about business. And again, not even the entrepreneurship side, but to your point, like just, I don't want to say sophistication, but the ability to specialize in luxury design and what that means to the client and, and how that integrates as a builder, and working, with a designer such as yourself. But to your point, it's just, it's, you and I definitely we have some work to do, but we can do that, through our channels. And that's what we're doing.
Hey, we're still young. We have plenty of time. So one of the cool things, I guess we met at Luann Live. I was there as a guest. You were there as a panelist. And the cool thing, the panelists really got to be part of the conference. We got to eat lunches with you. We got to ask questions. And I may have taken the asking questions, to the ninth degree. But for being a designer and being at something like that, you are such a resource because you get to do this. But one of the cool things in your market and is the level of luxury construction. I think every region has a different
Mhm.
definition of what luxury is. I would say we're luxury here, but our new builds still fall in that 500, kind of square foot for renovation for a nicely done, maybe 550, but for you, you're 800 to 1400 plus on some of these. So let's kind of dive into that.
Yeah, I think it's an appropriate conversation, in the sense that markets do vary. I mean, there's a reality to what clients are willing to spend, even if they have the net worth. There is a reality to what they could sell their home for. They don't want to price out of the market. And so, there are pockets in Arizona where we do have homes that are underneath that. But for the most part, depending on where the clients are building, that those numbers equate to what the property is. And building costs vary, in different markets. And so there's a lot of variables, but at the end of the day, um, there are always clients willing to invest in good design. There are clients willing to invest in building science. And, I know builders in some markets that have gone strictly from a building science perspective, like true net zero, right? Where the home produces as much energy as it consumes. And we've done a lot of net zero here, and it's definitely more expensive, right? It's more expensive to do that. But the whole point is that a lot of times we can brand ourselves to set the market as opposed to, the market setting us.
So let's talk about the net zero a little bit
Mhm.
because I think you're in Arizona, you have, the sunshine, you have the desert, you're in a very specific part of the country. When you're doing a net zero project, what are some of the kind of main focuses?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So net zero, really, you're trying to create an envelope to keep energy. And so if it's really hot outside, you're trying to keep the climate inside at a very comfortable temperature. And that heat, from thermal breaks, which means, that energy from outside's coming inside, you're trying to prevent that. And, same thing in the winter, right? You don't want to lose the warm interior to the cold exterior. And so you can offset, because the reality is no matter how tight and energy efficient you build the home, look, in Arizona, it's 115 outside in the summer. Like if you're trying to keep your house at 70, you still have to run your air conditioning. Now you may be able to run your air conditioning not as often. Um, and so that's where solar power comes in, right? You have battery backup. So there's things to offset that. So in the hard parts of the summer, you're running the heavy equipment that draws a lot of electricity, like your pool pump or, for your swimming pool or your air conditioner, but the solar power can generate that. But the whole point being is because the house is so energy efficient think of it like a Yeti cooler that stays cooler for longer. Well, there's just from insulating the foundation to exterior walls to triple pane windows to um, overhangs to prevent you, on at least in Arizona for south and west where that sun's really tough in those summer months. So there's just elements of building that we'll go through to make sure that we're protecting the home so that that energy loss is very minimal, and then it could be offset with solar or other green opportunities.
So I'm curious, is the client coming to you wanting, these options and this outcome, or is this something you guys are suggesting, or is the architect already kind of put it there?
Yeah, this is probably similar to like you as a designer hitting your head in the market, trying to find builders that like understand your value, right? I think there's an element from the building side to like um, try to get architects and designers, not designers, but more importantly, architects and clients in some cases to get on board with net zero. The reason being is, they've been trained and they want these amazing homes and they don't really think about the energy efficiency. They just want a great design that they can have published. And that's not to disparage or discredit any architects. I just think in general, there's a lot of complication with net zero and the engineers. And so the point being is that when we're building net zero, at least for our firm, it's typically a request from the client. And 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 we do advertise it. So we educate it. I have a podcast that speaks about it in some episodes, right? I post it on my social media
Yeah.
channels. So we're educating. So, probably 30%, 25% of my clients will come in and be like, hey, this is kind of the direction we want to go. And we just finished one recently. And we have one breaking ground next month. So it's something that's very that we build. It's just typically a client's on board, and then I don't want to say educate, but we coordinate heavily with the architectural team to make sure we can achieve, that net zero.
I mean, it's obviously an investment, but I think too, if they go to sell their home or whatever, the case may be, it's a really cool feature to tell people, we invested in this net zero, because normally when people come in, they want to see all the other pretty things that we'll get into, the fireplaces and,
Mhm.
what's in the kitchen. And, I guess do you do much basement work in Arizona?
Yeah, it's a good
So it's
question.
like, yeah, like those spaces. So kind of now let's lean out of like the net zero, but more into what are some of these features that these clients of yours are investing, these dollar amounts in that aren't standard for most people around the country?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, anyone that's followed our page, there's definitely an element of entertainment that's unique, right? I mean, we've done homes with baseball fields and lazy rivers and trampoline barns. I mean, we have a home right now that we'll be finishing up early next year. And they have two skate parks. They have an indoor skate park for the summer, and they have an outdoor one for the winter. So, they can kind of do both. Um, and so you just see a lot more of Arizona's unique because we don't really have a lot of natural disasters, right? We have good weather most of the year. The summers are hot, but even in the summers, we're working all summer. We're doing landscape and roofing. We're working earlier in the morning. But everyone has swimming pools, so the kids are out swimming. I mean, there's things. As long as you have a pool, it's a lot easier for the kids in the summer. But the winter's gorgeous here. Like it's beautiful. Like right now, it's October. So because of that, large multi sliders, that indoor outdoor living, you could take a house that's I don't want to say conservative, but 3 or 4,000 square feet, and with overhangs and covered patio in the backyard, you open up these multi sliders, and now this space turns into 6,000 square feet, right? And you're using that 8 months of the year. And so that's where it's unique from a luxury perspective, that we really optimize outdoors a lot more for our clients than probably other markets, because we just don't deal with the bugs like they would up north, or the cold weather, or rain. We have sunshine, most of the year. So
Okay, you say you don't deal with bugs, but I do follow your Instagram, and I know there has been scorpion videos.
yeah.
There's been snake
Oh
videos
yeah.
on, I feel like, a regular basis, and not just like Florida garden snakes. These are like legit predators. And I think there was one with a bobcat
Oh, we've
at
had
some
bobcats.
point.
Oh yeah.
So, yes, you may not have like the mosquitoes that Florida has, but I might trade a mosquito for a scorpion any day.
Well, it's fair. It's a fair point. But I guess I put it this way, is that I've lived in Arizona for almost 20 years now, and I've never been stung by a scorpion. My kids have never been stung. So it's not, even though they are here, they're like black widows. Like they're pretty reclusive. They hide in their corners of sight walls. There's pretty, people do get stung. They are creepy looking. I'm not going to lie. Like scorpions are actually pretty intimidating when you see them. It's kind of this like out of body moment. Um, but it's not as concerning as people think. But there's tarantulas, but they don't really, they're desert tarantulas. They hide out too. So we do have snakes. I mean, snakes, you have to be careful. But again, in my 20 years living here, my kids have never encountered a snake, right? And so there's pockets of Arizona, Phoenix, that it's farmland. Old groves and dairy farms and stuff. And so, in those areas, you don't deal as much with the wildlife. But any of our clients in Scottsdale or parts of Mesa where you're in the natural desert, you definitely have to look at putting a snake gate in or a snake fence to prevent snakes from coming in the property. If you have little dogs, we do build dog runs that are fully enclosed, because the eagles and the bobcats and coyotes could come grab them, so you have to protect the pets of the clients. So, yeah, there are elements, but it's really, even though we have fun showing on Instagram, it's really not um, it's not as bad as people may think.
Well, I'll take your word for it, but I know Florida is not, less on the critters as well. Okay. I thought I lost you for a second. Okay. So you talked about it a little bit, which I think is really cool. Like the trampoline barns, the skate parks. You guys have the luxury, some of your clients do at least, of acreage or these big properties or these really communities that are built for everyone to have all of these outbuildings. And really, I think that doesn't happen in a ton of places. So, what are some of these outbuildings beyond the trampoline barn, which is so cool, that your clients are kind of requesting?
Yeah, and so maybe it's a term Barnasium. I mean, anyone that's heard the
Mhm.
Barnasium, and so Barnasium is essentially like, just an entertaining space, and it could be, just a big open warehouse that now has, we have a client doing like a video game room, and they have a home gym, and they have an area where the kids can kind of go out and play music, and so you may have that element. You could take the Barnasium and make it a sport court where you have full basketball court indoor, and pickleball court. And so there's definitely when the project allows these Barnasium style properties, and keep in mind again, going back to the weather, a lot of our clients are car people because we don't have the salt in the air like maybe a coastal city,
Mhm.
Florida, California, that salt can be tough on the vehicle. Um, in the snow climates where they have salt on the roads, and it could it's really tough on these luxury vehicles, these collectibles. Whereas in Phoenix, yeah, it's hot, but you keep it indoor, so the heat doesn't beat on the paint in the vehicle. And so the point being is we're building Barnasiums with a 25 car garage, a 30 car garage. I have one right now that's 42 car garage. Um, so these outbuildings a lot of times are, people have sometimes done indoor swimming pools. So it could be swimming, it could be skate parks, it could be trampoline barns, it could be basketball and sport courts. I mean, there's a lot of variety that, clients are using these just as another outlet for events, kids, neighbors, you name it.
I love it, and I love that your clients seem very family driven, very friend driven, like, they are all people that like to entertain and be around people, which typically makes that person a good person. So, I think you've really drawn out these clients that seem to be really good humans.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate because our clients are incredible and they really are. In fact, I was just before we got on today, I was talking to a client and they just are. A lot of my clients, probably half are out of state, but even the ones that are out of state, they come in, they entertain, they have people at their home. So the homes are always built around entertainment, big kitchens, big great rooms, that indoor outdoor living I mentioned. And, I can't think of any client I've ever had that is, even though they may be private, they're not reclusive, right? They're always looking at family, grandkids, children that'll come back when they're married. And the home's always designed around, mini master bedrooms or mini suites so that the kids, when they're married, come back with their spouses and grandkids, and they're building, bunk rooms, or they're building like little bassinet rooms where the pack and play could be. So it is pretty neat that and even the client that we did this incredible build with a wiffle ball field, they have neighborhood kids coming by every night, turning on the lights and the scoreboard and playing wiffle ball. And the neighborhood kids, they just have a access through the gate that they can come play, and the clients let them. So I feel very fortunate to work for some really amazing clients.
What a dream. That is really, really cool. So we've talked great clients, we've talked kind of all these outbuildings. I think one thing that you and your firm, I hate the word trend because I feel like that means it's not going to be,
Hmm.
cool in a few years. But I think you guys have really gotten to a point where you're doing some of these finishes and some of these other kind of design details before a lot of other people. So what are you seeing on some of your builds?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We did a bathroom with the lifestyle co, and it was this like arch shower door with like black, black etched around the glass door. And I mean, I've known, I don't know, probably 20 builders and designers use that detail. And so the point being is that, the trend's an interesting word, Nicole, but I think what's unique about our builds is they're very beautiful and they're very livable. And so,
Mhm.
they're not picking finishes that are like museum that you don't feel you can actually live. So, our clients are very good about, and our designers about picking products that look amazing, photo, video, and anyone that's in there high quality. But at the same time, you can live in it. You could spill something on it. You don't have to have all this maintenance. Like I mentioned, a lot of my clients travel a lot, or they're here half the time. And so having homes that could be, fairly well kept without a ton of maintenance is really important. So we design around that. Um, but yeah, I think in general, most of our homes, have small bedrooms so the kids don't go hide out, and they have big living areas to entertain, and the conveniences of maybe the home gym, or, healthy living, from cold plunge to, infrared sauna to, the pool. I mean, there's just a lot of like healthy living elements that we put into our build. So it does make it fun where it's not so much trendy, but it's just real life how our clients will use it. And true, I mean, it's definitely clientele that not every client can do a cold plunge and an infrared sauna and have this incredible, zero edge pool that looks like glass. But it's something that our clients do enjoy and can.
And I think these past, 4 years, the world kind of changed a lot, as we know. And I think the idea of these wellness spaces is really, really cool, and the home gyms. And as we know, we're both raising children, them seeing us, working out, them seeing it, and not just, mom and dad are going to the gym or mom and dad are going to do whatever. They're physically, seeing their parents sitting in the sauna, or they're doing that, is really a neat just lifestyle because it passes it on to them. So I think the wellness thing is really cool. But also, you say your clients travel a lot. Maybe they live there 6 months out of the year. It would be hard to leave some of those houses. Like, they're better than a lot of resorts from an amenities standpoint. You have your luxury kitchen. I know you guys do some of the back kitchens,
Mhm.
or people refer to them as the dirty kitchen.
Mhm.
But you have, the movie theaters. You have everything that a nice resort has, you know, at home. So I think the small bedrooms is interesting because, as you know, they do want to go tuck in there and the other kind of spaces to allow entertaining. But I think having that ability to be healthy and live a great life at your home is just really, really cool.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we've seen it through healthy living, whether it be lighting, whether it be air filtration, water filtration, just from a clients are very aware of that. But the whole point being is that these are incredible spaces that clients don't like to leave. It gives them something to look forward to, and it's a place where they can come and they get excited to come visit. But I think what makes it easier for them is, let's be honest, I don't mind the summer, but most people don't like Arizona summer. So,
Yeah.
for them, they're in a position where they could go to, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, or they're maybe in the Midwest, and enjoying Minnesota in the summer where it's really beautiful. And so, they have areas where they can travel to and enjoy those summers. And then in the winters, when the weather may be a little crummy where they're from, they're here enjoying their little retreat paradise. So, and out golfing all the time. So it is the best of both worlds for sure.
No, and we have that in Florida too. We call them snowbirds. I don't know if
Yeah, we
that's
do
the
too.
same
Yeah,
term.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The same term, across the way. And my design firm, we love a snowbird
Yeah.
project. They come down, they buy a house, we do the design presentation, they approve it. They're gone for 6 months. They come home and, the home is renovated. So it's definitely, we love that type of client. But I think it would be hard to leave those properties for sure.
Oh yeah. But to your point, I mean, it's most of them, live a little bit differently. So like in a great way,
Yeah.
but they invest and, and, in fairness, not to sidetrack this, but I remember early on there call it, internet trolls to be like, how, I'm so offended, these projects you're posting that people spend this. And, I've always had a different, and I'd respond to them because my tech's a little bit different. A lot of the clients that we're building for, they could just have their money sitting in the stock market. They could go buy a personal jet. Like that's the thing. If they go buy a personal jet, well, who does that benefit? The jet broker and then a few companies that are manufacturing this airplane. They go build a custom home. Well, you have interior design firms, you have architecture firms, you have 500 trades that are probably part of this. I mean, you're putting working dollars. You have suppliers and vendors. I mean, by them building this stuff, I mean, it creates so much opportunity and jobs for so many people, including taxes for the city and the government and permit
Yeah.
fees. And there's just a lot of elements that, but the point being is that they are in a place where they can enjoy the hard work that they've created and they can go back and forth. So
I think it's really cool, and I think it's a great way to look at it as well because they are, and they're not just staying, it's not, one individual staying home by themselves. I think you get that they wanna share it with their friends, and they want to be able to do that, but I think you and I understand this as well. Like, as a designer, I get to pick amazing things on a daily basis. I go to market. We get to see these things that I'm not necessarily in the same financial position as some of my clients. But you're now in a point where you're building your own home. So I think
Not at the level of my
that
clients, but it is good.
no, but I think you're now like you've done this long enough. You see what's important to you. You see
Mhm.
what's important to your family. You see what you want to accomplish. But now it's kind of your turn. So that's kind of, if you don't mind, I want to
Sure.
dive into like what your priority list was, what was important to you. Some builders build it as like a show house kind of to show potential clients, but you have enough of a portfolio. You don't have to build this house to, land your first,
Mhm.
killer house. So, what was on your priority list?
Yeah, that's a good question. But even though, like, I definitely had the mindset to build it like a model home, a showpiece, for AFT
Mhm.
based on the quality we do. But, I speak about net zero. We touched on this in this conversation. We do a lot of
Mhm.
ICF. We build with ICF, which is insulated concrete foam, like Lego blocks
Mhm.
of foam filled with concrete. It's extremely energy efficient. The sound is, the sound transition is way better. The bugs that we talked about prevents bugs, dust. There's just a lot of benefits to it. So, it's funny because when I started my house and a few of my clients found out that do like ICF and net zero, they're like, Brad, you better be building a house with ICF because you sold us on it. I am like, it's not wood frame, like it's ICF.
Yeah.
So to your point, like our home is it's going to be net zero. So energy efficiency is there. Working with a lot of brands that I believe in, from Kohler to Sub Zero Wolf and Renai and, Fox Blocks, there's so many vendors that I've partnered with that we're using in this build. And so, but to your point, it's like same thing, the swimming pool, the grass area for the kids, trampoline in ground, in floor trampolines, pickleball court. There's just some elements that I have our clients that will use the same, with kids. So
I think it's fun. And I think we both have the luxury, and those in our industry, like we have the brands we love. We know what plumbing brands, outlast the rest. We know what kind of features we've seen them, we've done them, we've touched them. But also, like, it's kind of fun to, as renovating our own home, like, Moen may reach out to us and be like, hey, we offer, this designer discount for personal use or our cabinet company. And I have found, especially like one of the cabinet companies we work with, they want us to do something fun. They want it to be awesome. They want it in our house as a designer because they know we're going to push our own limits because we want the photos and we want to be able to share it. And they want the photos too. Because if it's our house, they can use it for, really whatever they want. So, what a cool experience for you and your family to now be building this. I don't want to say the word forever because every builder
yeah,
I've ever known is like, oh, we're going to live in this house for, a decade. And like 2 years later, they sell it and they're building a new house. So, what do you think your plan is?
yeah, it's definitely not. Well, I mean, it's funny. You design it as your forever home, like practically. As I mentioned, kids getting married, coming back and living there. It's definitely built for that. Um, But as a builder, even though it's a great part of town, I mean, it's hard to say it's forever because I've seen my clients say it's their forever home, and now I'm working on their second home or third home. So I know how this goes. So I would say forever, at least for the next few years.
No, and I think knowing that going into it, but also knowing that you're building it for you, but it could become somebody else's forever home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I think that tells a really cool story too. So, well, I hope everything, on that part goes smooth, and I'm sure you guys are going to be able to make some great choices, and I really look forward to seeing how it turns out.
Yeah, it's coming along good. I mean, fortunately, it's definitely backseat of priority because I have client bills that take priority, but it's moving along, it's tracking, it's slower pacing my client builds, but it's gonna, we're super excited about
I fully understand that. We have a lot of about 75% done projects at our
it.
house. And I think it took 6 months for us to get some wallpaper installed because I kept changing my date to put a client in place of me. And eventually I was like, just do it. I'm never going to get there. But you do the luxury side. You're now doing one for yourself. Not everybody has the ability for, kind of that expensive a house. What would your advice be to people that are building, a custom home but aren't, in that same kind of dollar value? What things would you find the most important to splurge on?
That's actually a phenomenal question. It's funny because a lot of clients get hung up on, the nice cabinetry, the nice range, the nice stove, right? And, and so the dollars aren't there for like the building element because they don't see the value of what's in the walls. I definitely take a different take. I think that you can still find decent finishes, and if your budget doesn't allow, I think it's always valuable to invest in good weather barriers on your home. It prevents mold and prevents water. There's nothing more irritating as a client moving in and having water leaks or moisture issues in your home. From a healthy standpoint, if there's mold in the walls, how that could create issues for the client. So I think, at the core of it, just having a good envelope to the home. Energy efficiency is great. So of course, I'm going to be biased to the building side, even though I love pretty finishes. But I think at the core, like if you don't have all the funds, just look at something that's more livable. Think about how you're going to live in the home in the years to come, and maintenance. I think maintenance is something that's overlooked a lot, whether it's the landscape you're putting in and what it's going to take to maintain it, whether it's the wood flooring, if you're putting in marble as opposed to maybe, an engineered product. Not to push either one, but just look at what it's going to take for you to, maintain the home, because there's additional costs with that down the road.
You had a guest on your podcast maybe a couple months ago from the Bay Area who was a custom home builder who kind of almost enforced, might not be the right word, but the maintenance kind of package on his new builds. And it was a really interesting concept that I've had a discussion now with multiple builders around me. You guys build this great home. I'm sure the designers pass over, care information. I'm sure your firm as well gives them kind of the maintenance and the package. But clients, even luxury ones that have maybe a house manager or have people like on staff, don't always do the best job in maintaining their home. So the idea of, your builder coming in at regularly scheduled intervals to do the maintenance for you really just kind of blew my mind. Is that something y'all have thought about anymore since that conversation?
Yeah, I actually have like a customer service liaison that works for me now. Because the reality is, I mean, think about it. As a builder, it's your risk. I mean, most of us are dealing with risk all the time. And a lot of the lawsuits come from product failure. And some cases the product failed, some cases it was installed properly, and a lot of cases it wasn't maintained right. And so by maintenance and checking and follow up, you can typically prevent some of these issues from failing, or at least notice them and, do some preventive maintenance. And so there is a lot of benefit to investing in, a warranty department, and then also concierge for the client, where they may use that for other things. As you mentioned, a la carte, that you can almost self-fund that department, through those contracts with clients.
No, I think the idea of a concierge service is really cool because even now with technology being so wild, appliances talk to each other. It's very easy for something in your home to kind of get out of whack. But, and I know the builders I work with, they're getting phone calls on Friday nights. They're getting phone calls on Sundays like, hey, my dishwasher, is making this funny noise. And it's like, we installed the dishwasher 3 years ago. Like, it's beyond, your
Warranty,
scope.
right?
Yeah, but as a builder, you still want to help and assist because you want to keep that relationship, and there may be another new build, or there may be that referral that, we want the referral. So the concierge type service, taking, maybe the owner of the company out of the picture, I think could be really neat.
Yeah, it does. And the concierge is nice because clients are looking for that, that service anyways. And it keeps you in front of the client. It keeps the relationship. And, a lot of those, what's the easiest, referral? What's the easiest business development is working for a previous client. I'm sure as a designer, that a lot of designers hit it off with the client, and they design projects for them all over the world. So it's like, that customer retention is very important.
No, I agree. And I think the relationship with you, especially some of these clients, these builds could be 2, maybe 3 or more years. So if something goes, south early, you have a long time. And none of us want to cringe when we see our phone ringing and it's, a certain client's name. You don't want to put yourself in that position. So I think having the concierge, having, such a large team of people to really take care of your clients is really great.
Oh, it's huge.
And I know you have this team. So you said you have about 30 people right now.
I do, yeah.
And I see you do post on social of, these teams meetings and some of these outings y'all do.
Hmm.
I know you're a good human, but it's still hard to keep people to want to work for, the same person for an extended period of time. What are some things that you feel like you guys do right to make your teams want to stay?
It's a really good question. What I found is I've lost good people in the past because we didn't really have direction, we didn't have processes, we didn't have expectations. Just like a client needs they need good expectations set, so do employees, right? And if they feel that they're in an environment where they can't perform, they can't succeed, there's a lot of stress, they don't have organization, they're going to get worn out. If they don't like their managers, a lot of times you lose people because they just don't like their managers. So at the core of, what I've realized is we spent time in processes and systems, and I don't want to say create a competitive environment, but you create an environment where people feel that they can share, their insight and knowledge and talents, and that it's actually heard and reciprocated. And they may not see the whole picture of the organization, but at least you're listening to their point of view and then seeing how you can implement that, if it does make sense for the company. And so we have a lot of processes that were created from all of our employees, not just managers, not just myself, but at every level. And so where they feel that they can have an impact on the organization, where they feel pretty clear on what their scope of work is, where they have pride in the projects that we're building and the reputation we have in the market, they want to uphold that. Really what it comes down to, when you have employees that are honored to wear the brand. So like to have employees that are like honored to say they work for AFT, and it's like a sense of pride, that's really, the goal. That if they feel that pride working for the brand, then, everything else, the activities and outings and, compensation, all adds to that. But at the core, creating an environment and, the probably the, I don't know, the best feedback, or what makes me probably smile the biggest, is like when you have employees saying, this is like the best job I've ever had. Like, this is my favorite place that I've ever worked, And it's not like it's just someone who's 25. Sometimes you have someone that's 55 telling you that. And so, that part's pretty special.
And I think one thing you've done really well, I'm super into branding. I love marketing. I think if I wasn't an interior designer, we'd probably be in that kind of industry. And I do a lot of commercial projects where we partner with marketing and branding agencies to kind of develop the feeling. But one thing I've noticed, you're AFT construction. So it's not like Brad Leavitt construction.
Right.
And I think when you take the owner's name out of it, it also gives them kind of a sense like they can show up to a meeting and the client's not like, where's Brad? Or the phone call isn't, I
Hmm.
only want to talk to Brad, because you've developed this whole brand and this image, and you share them on socials and you do things so your team members really get to kind of almost have ownership per se of the company, because it's not just Brad's name on every truck, Brad's name on every notepad, Brad's name on every t-shirt. It is this kind of separate entity, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that is a part of it. There's definitely thought to not make it Brad Levitt construction. Like, and the reality is, like, yeah, in some ways people may think I'm the face of the company, but it's not. The company doesn't operate without everyone that's, part of our firm. And I do showcase them. I put them on social media. I put them on a YouTube channel. Like, they're in front of the client. They're having these hard conversations with clients. I mean, they're the point of contact for the clients. And so they do have ownership, because they're like, I know that a lot of them have said specifically, like, Brad doesn't have to be at these meetings. They're handling these meetings without me there. And so they feel that they have ownership of these projects, and they're their babies from the very beginning. So there's definitely some thought into, that element of how we created AFT.
No, I think it's great. And I think on the other side of it, you have your team members, the AFT employees, but how you refer to like the subcontractors that work for you as trade partners,
Hmm.
I think that is also setting a new industry standard, because they aren't just subs. Like, they are your trade partners. And being a general contractor, your guys aren't out there doing the carpentry or pouring the concrete. You don't exist without a killer A team of trade partners. So let's explain maybe a little bit how you've developed these relationships and kind of how that system's worked for you.
Oh, I love that question because, and I say in a lot of my posts, there's no way we'd perform without our trade partners. And where I feel fortunate is that I would say all of them, if not all, but most of them have very personal relationships with, right? So we're friends outside of work, right? We play golf together. We have, um, there's an admiration, there's a coordination, right? There's a professionalism. And again, this kind of goes back to the company culture aspect is like the feedback from all of my subs are like, we love working with AFT. Like all of your supers are like, and your coordinators, like they're so professional and they're so well spoken and they're so communicative. And so for them to develop those relationships to like be communicative, to give them information, let them be profitable by being ready as a contractor, being on time, keeping your schedule, paying them frequently. Like it's just like, I mean, it seems easy, but like if you can create systems and you can pay them on time and you treat them with respect, I mean, look, I just, you've heard me say this, Nicole. I mean, I say, don't confuse my kindness with weakness. There's a fine balance to be very firm and resolute and very direct, but it doesn't mean you have to scream and yell. It just doesn't. And it's just not how we operate here. So, but we can at least, we're not going to be pushed over either, right? We're going to always defend, the client. We represent the client and the trades understand that, our trade partners understand that. But at the same time, like, they're good people too. They want to do a good job. They want to keep working for AFT. And so, it's very important, that relationship.
Yeah, I would agree. I learned very early on through internships that if you can make the guys that are on site not just like you, but respect you, but also not try to avoid you. And I'm a female. I'm 5'3". Like I'm not, this 6'3" man walking onto a site. Like I've had to work really hard for these
For sure.
relationships, but the guys will show up for me when I need it. Like we're doing a couple small commercial jobs that they're smaller than their normal scale, but I've sent text to all of them and I'm like, "Hey, do me a solid. I need these two walls patched and drywall." Like they show up and they show up happy and they show up willing to do it. And they also really help because yes, I'm a designer. Yes, I have a construction background, but I don't know everything,
Right.
and I don't pretend to. Like, I do need their assistance, and I do need them to help us work out a solution, but it's also just really fun to celebrate the wins with the trade partners. Like, they worked really hard on this job. They deserve to be celebrated.
Oh, they do. And they love that. And that's why, even on a side note, not only just we celebrate, but we have like what we call a superintendent fund. So each of our supers have like a monthly fund where they can go buy pizza or donuts or drinks or, treat them with a little gift card or something, if they're working really hard or keeping the site clean.
I love that, and I'm a huge like, if a site's not clean, I feel like there's a lot of other stuff that's not happening correctly, so I can appreciate, kind of that end of the day cleanup, but also, the pizza on a Friday or a food truck rolling in after topping out, like, we need more trades in this world, especially, the United States, like, we
Hmm.
really need those skilled guys that are willing to put in the work, so I'm glad you celebrate them. Okay, so I have one last question that I like to ask. What if you could redesign anything? And my example is movie theaters. I love going to the movies. I love taking the kids to the movies. I love that experience. But I have yet to go into a movie theater that has actually like met my expectations of what I feel like the vibe should be and the experience should be. And I know we've spoken in the past about like hotel gyms. Sometimes it's a really nice hotel, but the gym is still like awful. So what would kind of be your place that you'd want to redesign?
Oh, you took my answer. I was going to say hotel gyms because that's like the worst. I mean, I travel.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I travel a
Yeah.
lot, and I think there's probably only been like two hotels that have a decent gym. And the thing is, you could design a nice gym. The funny thing is, even has it translate to homes. We do a lot of home gyms, and it's one of those areas of the homes that's just like forgotten or it's off to the side. That even like in our personal homes that we design, like the client has all these amazing amenities and they have all these spa treatments. They may have like a massage room or something, like a total spa treatment, Zen garden. But then like their gym's just like, there's like, so whether it's the house gym or the hotel gym, it's just often overlooked for sure.
Okay. And I know we had spoken off kind of camera how we both went on a cruise, a Disney cruise, not that long ago. Did you work out on the cruise ship?
I did. Yeah, I did. I had to. And luckily they had a decent gym. It was good enough that we could perform there on the Disney cruise. So that was good. It was a little rocky the first day, like it was a little wavy. I was like, whoa, my equilibrium's thrown off. But the other days is fairly calm, not probably like for you. So
Yes. No, I was telling Brad, we went on a cruise, rough seas. I did do a Pilates class, which was more of just a balance and not fall over, but it was a really cool experience.
that's awesome.
But okay, Brad, so I want you to tell everybody where they can find you, where they can follow you, kind of anything cool you have upcoming, like whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, so I'm again Brad Leavitt. So if you look up the Brad Leavitt podcast on any platform, you'll find it. We've been published for 5 years, doing a podcast every week. Nicole's been a guest on there. I have my YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Everything's AFT Construction or AFT_construction. Website is aftconstruction.com. But if you're going to Instagram, you can look up Brad Leavitt or AFT Construction will pop up. I mean, LinkedIn's under Brad Leavitt. So, or you could just Google it. So, I mean, if you look up Brad Leavitt AFT Construction, I mean, all the media channels should pop up. So,
Their Instagram is great. Their YouTube is really worth the watch, especially if you're wanting to do like a new build. I did not know you were on TikTok, so that will definitely be
yeah, go
something
check
I
it
dig
out.
up later.
I mean,
But
it's not as big. I mean, but we're decent. We have like 30,000 followers. It's not too bad.
that is really
Yeah.
decent. So congratulations. Thank you so much for doing this. It was, as always, great talking.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Nicole.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Highly Affected by Her Surroundings. I truly appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the podcast. It helps others discover the show, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. For more behind-the-scenes content and design inspiration, follow us on social media. You can find me, Nicole, at Nixon Interiors, and the podcast at Highly Affected by Her Surrounding. We'll be sharing updates, sneak peeks, and exclusive offers you won't want to miss. Plus, if you want a recap or more details from today's episode, you can find the show notes at arnixoninteriors.com under the Highly Affected by Her Surroundings tab. Once again, thank you for your support, and I can't wait to connect with you on social. See you next time.